Hello, second grade. It's Mrs. Pecora here, back with our last chapter of Mrs. Patty is Batty. I hope you've been enjoying this story. I know I have. I'm sitting outside on my deck on this nice, cool fall day. So if you hear some background noise, I'm outside. So you might hear birds chirping, crickets. You might hear some squirrels chittering at each other. So don't be alarmed. It's just the sounds of nature. So when we left off, they were in the basement and AJ was about ready to open the door handle. And I mistakenly thought the chapter was over, but there was one more page. So we left off and he said, I'm not going to tell you what was behind the door. And I forgot this page. So here we go. Okay, I'll tell you. But you have to read the next chapter. So nah, boo, boo on you. Chapter 10, Marvin, the Headless Mummy. Behind the door was a big dark room, and it was full of kids. I couldn't see much, but I recognized Neil the nude kid and Annette and some other kids from our class. They were just sitting there, like they were waiting for us. It was weird. In the middle of the room was a big trunk. It was like one of those trunks that pirates used to use to hide their treasure. Michael asked, what in the... But he never got a chance to finish his sentence because suddenly the top of the trunk started to lift up. A hand was pushing it open. And then this thing got out. It was a mummy with bandages all over its body. But the weird thing was that the mummy didn't have a head. Well, it had a head, but the head wasn't on top of his shoulders where it was supposed to be. The mummy was holding its head in its hand like a football. Eee! Screamed Emily. It's Marvin, I shouted. Mrs. Patty's dead husband. His ghost came to life. He's the Halloween monster, yelled Ryan. We're gonna die, Michael screamed. I told you he should have made a run for it, I shouted. Bruh, said Marvin's head. I had no idea how it was able to talk, but it did. It said, give me your candy. Put everything in the trunk or else. The head didn't have to ask me twice. I ran over and dumped all the candy from my pillowcase into the trunk. So did Ryan and Michael and Andrea and Emily and Neil the nude kid and Annette. I guess that mummy made all the kids turn over their candy because there was about 1,100,000 candy bars in the trunk. Said Marvin's head as Marvin danced around the trunk. It's mine, all mine. Now at long last I have more candy than anyone in town. My life is complete. That's what you think. We all turned to see who said that. A big guy stepped out of the shadows at the other end of the room. He had a crown on his head and a sword in his hand. It was Mr. Klutz, our school principal. It is I, he said, pointing his sword at Marvin the mummy. King Louis the... Oh, sorry, boys and girls. King Louis the 14th, in the name of France, surrender that candy. Over my dead body, Marvin said. That was really weird. Everyone knows mummies are dead bodies to begin with. Marvin grabbed a sword off the wall with the hand he wasn't using to hold his own head. Then he and Mr. Klutz started sword fighting, just like in the movies. It was cool. Get him, Mr. Klutz, we all shouted. Kill the Halloween monster. Mr. Klutz and Marvin were dancing around, swinging their swords at each other. Off with your head, Mr. Klutz said, taking a wild swing. His head is already off, someone yelled. Oh, said Mr. Klutz, let him eat cake. The sword fight was really exciting. Finally, after 1,100,000 minutes, Mr. Klutz knocked the sword out of the Halloween monster's hand. Please have mercy, Marvin said as he fell to his knees. Begone, Mr. Klutz said. Don't ever steal candy from the children of elementary school again. I'll get you, my pretty, said the Halloween monster as it ran up the stairs. And your little dog, too. I don't even have a dog, said Mr. Klutz. After the Halloween monster ran away, Mrs. Patty came downstairs. Hooray for Mr. Klutz, she yelled. We all started cheering. I have defeated the Halloween monster, said Mr. Klutz. I mean Louis the 14th. We should celebrate, said Mrs. Patty. Let's have a candy party. Yay, we all yelled. Mr. Klutz and Mrs. Patty tipped over the treasure chest and dumped all the candy on the floor. We were allowed to eat whatever we wanted and take the rest home. I ate so much candy, I thought I was going to throw up. It was the greatest night of my life. After eating all that candy, I couldn't fall asleep for 1,100,000 hours. I just lay there in bed, thinking about all the cool stuff that happened. Maybe Mrs. Patty does keep her Halloween decorations up all year round. Maybe her husband Marvin really is dead. Maybe she did chop his head off and turn him into a mummy. Maybe that's why he's so mad and he has to run around the house holding his own head. Maybe now that he lost the sword fight to Mr. Klutz, he'll be nicer and stop taking the kids' candy. Maybe Marvin and Mrs. Patty will get back together and just be normal people again, even though one of them is dead. And maybe Mrs. Patty will be able to get that wart off her nose. But it won't be easy. All right, boys and girls, that was the end of our story. Mrs. Patty is Batty. I hope you enjoyed it. Stay tuned for our next book that we will be reading. Not sure what it's going to be yet, but stay tuned. Bye-bye, second grade.